In this lesson, we'll work on the presentation of the car we've just built by creating an HDR lighting setup. Right, so here is our car we've just completed. You can see here I've added a couple of shaders of just this black shader right here on some of these pieces. If we go in here to our hypershade, you can see I've just created a couple of new shaders, put a blend on the main body panels of this car so we can see that a little bit better, and it'll react a little bit better to our HDR lighting. And you can either go ahead and create those yourself and apply those, or you can go ahead and start with this file we have here. So we have this gray car. We need to start adding some materials and lighting. Okay, but the first thing we want to do is actually go in and create our HDR lighting setup so that we can see better when we start creating our materials how those are reacting to the lighting. Okay, the first thing we might want to do is right now it's just kind of sitting out in space here on our grid, so we need to kind of ground that a little bit. And so if you want to go in and just import, and I'm just going to import this car backdrop. Hold that in. It's got a nice cyc wall right here. And I'm going to kind of set my camera. Let's kind of render from this angle. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and select that cyc and just kind of rotate it around so that it's kind of facing our camera. And then what we need to do is actually create a dome for our HDR image to be applied to. Now, there are a couple ways to do this. One of the probably best ways to get a little more control over your image is to use some actual geometry. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and create a polygon sphere, and let's just scale that up. And then I'm just going to go in and delete the bottom half of this guy right here. Just delete him, and this is going to serve as our dome here. So I'm going to just scale this up. Give yourself enough room inside here to kind of move your camera around. Okay, so it's nice and large. So now we just need to go in and actually create an HDR material here. So I'm going to go into hypershade, and a good material to use with this is going to be our surface shader, and that's not going to contain any sort of shadows. It's going to be a flat sort of containing your color information that will kind of work the best. So I'm going to just create a surface shader here. Let's go ahead and just apply it to that half sphere we've got. I'm going to go into my attributes of my surface shader, and I'm going to follow this out color. We're going to apply the image to our out color. So I'm going to go in here, and we want to select File. And let's go choose this file right here, .hdr. And this file has been generously provided to us by HDRI Studio. And you can go there to their website at hdri-studio.com. Check out all the great images that they have. They've generously provided this for us, and you'll find a copy on your CD of an image that you can use. I'm going to go ahead and apply that into our material here. Go ahead and close that out. And now if we look at our dome and go ahead and hit 6 to turn on our hardware texturing here so we can see this. You can see that now we have these kind of white light panes on our dome here. Okay, and those are going to be providing light onto the surface of our car. Now, one of the advantages of using geometry like this is the kind of control that you can get over the placement of these. Okay, so right now I've got my dome selected here. I'm just going to go to Create UVs, and let's apply a cylindrical map here. And now I can go ahead and close that off. And now you can see that I can adjust the placement of these guys. I can move up or down, and just kind of gives you a lot more control using this way than perhaps using an HDR environment node. Okay, so now if we go in here, check this out, kind of get our camera back where we want to be able to render this guy. And we're going to be rendering this car in mental ray. Okay, so make sure you have that selected here. Render using mental ray. You go into your options here, you'll see your mental ray. So let's go ahead and take a render of this guy and see how he looks. And it's coming in. I'm just going to pause for a second while this guy renders out. Okay, so here's a render that we've got using our existing setup. Got a big shape right here. You can actually rotate your dome around a little bit to get a little bit more detail going on around the sides here. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to just grab the dome here, top view. Go ahead and turn on that shading so you can kind of see what's going on. Okay, we're getting a big light right on here. So we can actually rotate this around a little bit to give you a little bit better result. And then just see what we get here. And there we go. You can see it looks a little bit better. We've got some nice highlight there. Now what we want to do is actually turn that HDR image into a light source. We can turn on Final Gather in our Mental Ray tab here. Now we have some training that goes into a lot greater detail. You can check out the Mental Ray rendering workflow training, and it'll give you a lot better idea of what's going on in our Mental Ray going on with Mental Ray here, and go into a lot greater depth. Okay, so just check that out if you want to learn more about Mental Ray. I'm just going to turn on the Final Gather here, and let's check that out. Okay, here we go. You can see everything in here got quite a bit brighter. One thing you want to make sure to check in your Common tab in your Mental Ray, in your rendering options here, is you want to turn off this Enable Default Light. Okay, so you want the only light to be affecting that is your image there. Okay, and now let's try that again. And here's our result with our default light turned off. And you might notice that you've got your bright areas here. You might want those to be a little bit darker, and in the same way you might want some of these darker areas to be a little bit brighter. We can change some of those options here by just going into your shader, bring up my hypershade, and here's our surface shader. Just follow this color right here and go into your image. And so we've got the image, and we're going to go into color balance. And so to adjust the bright areas, we're going to be looking at this color gain. Okay, and all you want to do is maybe tone that down a little bit. Maybe something like 0.8 here in the value. All right, and you can see right here that that's toned down those bright areas a little bit. And you might also want to bring up your darker areas just slightly, so you can see how that's affecting the little bit darker areas there. So you can make those adjustments based on how your image is looking in your render. Let's go ahead and re-render that. And here's that image with our HDR set up and our color balance manipulated a little bit on these bright areas and the darker areas. So you can tweak those settings until you get something that you like. But now that we have our lighting set up, in the next lesson we'll go in and start working on these shaders. We'll add a really neat car paint shader that's going to go really quickly and add a lot to this car. We're going to add some tread to these tires. We're going to work on a chrome shader for these wheels and really get this car looking nice and sharp.